My mother was rushed to the emergency room on a Sunday afternoon, and my sister-in-law was annoyed that it interrupted the appetizers. That's what I keep coming back to. Not the chaos of it, not the ambulance, not my mother's face going pale while she grabbed the edge of the table. What I keep coming back to is my sister-in-law. I'll call her my brother's wife because that's all she ever really was to me, standing in the kitchen doorway with a cheese board in her hands, looking at the paramedics rolling a stretcher through the front door, and sighing like someone had just canceled her favorite show. "This is so dramatic," she said, not to anyone in particular, just out loud into the room. "I'm 31 years old. I've had my share of difficult family moments. But I had never, not once, wanted to physically remove another human being from a space the way I wanted to remove her from that house that afternoon. Let me back up. My mother has a severe allergy to shellfish, not a sensitivity. She prefers not to eat it. A genuine anaphylactic, carrion EpiPen allergy that she's had since she was in her 40s. Every single person in our family knows this. My brother has known this for 15 years. His wife, Melissa, they've been married for 6 years, has been told this so many times that my mom laminated a card and put it on the refrigerator the first time they hosted Thanksgiving. A laminated card on the refrigerator. So when Melissa offered to host Easter this year, my mother asked, the way she always does, just to confirm, "Nothing with shellfish, right? Even hidden in sauces or broths?" And Melissa said, "Of course not, don't worry about it." Smiled, touched my mom's arm. "I've got you." She did not have her. The dipping sauce for the appetizers had shrimp paste in it. I didn't know it. My mom didn't know it. Melissa served it in a little ramekin next to the artichoke hearts and didn't mention a word. My mom took one bite and knew something was wrong within minutes. Her throat started tightening. Her eyes went red. She reached into her purse for the EpiPen she always carries, and her hands were shaking so badly she couldn't work the cap off. I got it for her. I administered it. I called 911 while my brother stood next to his wife in the kitchen doorway and said, "Should we still put the ham in?" I'm not making that up. I wish I was. The paramedics came. They took my mother. I rode with her, held her hand in the back of the ambulance, watched the monitor beep, and kept thinking, she told all of you. There is a laminated card. We were at the hospital for 4 hours. My mom was treated, stabilized, and kept for observation. She was okay. She was going to be okay, but she was frightened in a way I hadn't seen from her in years, and somewhere in the middle of hour 2, she looked at me and said, "Do you think it was an accident?" I didn't answer her. When I got back to Melissa and my brother's house to pick up my things and my mom's purse, the family was still there. They had finished Easter dinner. There were plates in the sink and a leftover ham on the counter, and everyone was sitting in the living room with dessert like we just had a minor inconvenience and rejoined the afternoon. Melissa looked up when I walked in and said, "How is she?" "She's stable. They're keeping her overnight for observation." "Good." She picked up her fork. "See, I told you the EpiPen would work." The room went quiet. I think even my brother knew that was the wrong thing to say. I put my mom's purse under my arm. I picked up her cardigan from the coat rack by the door. And I said, very calmly, "Did you know the sauce had shrimp paste in it?" Melissa set her fork down. "It was a very small amount. I honestly didn't think it would be an issue." "You didn't think?" I stopped, started over. "She has an anaphylactic allergy." "You knew that. You've known that for 6 years." "I know, but she's always so careful. I figured she'd check. There is a laminated card on your refrigerator." She looked at my brother. My brother looked at his hands. My aunt, my dad's sister, who had flown in from Phoenix specifically for this Easter, said very carefully, "Let's not make this bigger than it needs to be. Everyone is okay," and that was it. That was the sentence that broke something in me. Let's not make this bigger than it needs to be. My mother was in a hospital bed 40 minutes away because someone chose not to read a label, and the suggestion was that I was the one making things too big. I looked around the room. My brother, not meeting my eyes. My aunt, nodding at her dessert plate. My cousin and her husband suddenly very interested in their phones. My dad's brother, who had flown in from the same place, same trip, actually said, "These things happen, sweetheart." These things happen, sweetheart. These things happen. I left. I didn't say anything else. I got in my car, I drove back to the hospital, and I sat with my mom until she fell asleep. The next morning, she was discharged. I took her home. I made her tea. I helped her get settled on her couch, and I didn't tell her what had happened after I left, because she was exhausted and scared and didn't need it yet. But here's what you need to know about my situation, the thing that becomes relevant about 2 weeks later. I own the house my parents live in. Not in a complicated way. My grandparents left it to me specifically. It's a long story involving family dynamics I won't get into here, but the short version is that my grandfather trusted me to keep it in the family and take care of my parents, and so the deed is in my name. My parents pay me a monthly amount that is well below market rate. I've never raised it. I've never used it as leverage. It's their home. I've always treated it that way. My brother knows this. Melissa definitely knows this because she has made comments about it before. Little comments, the kind that are designed to sound like observations but land like accusations. Things like, "Isn't it interesting that Grandpa chose you?" or "Do you ever think about what you'd do with that property?" Said with a smile. Always with a smile. After Easter, I started getting text messages. First from my brother, "Hey, is Mom doing okay? Can we talk?" I responded, "She's home. She's fine. And yes, we should talk." He called that evening. He said Melissa felt terrible. He said it was a genuine mistake. He said she had no idea shrimp paste counted as shellfish. Which, I'm sorry, what? And that she was devastated by what happened and wanted to apologize to my mom in person. I said I'd let my mom decide whether she wanted that conversation. Then I got a text from Melissa directly. It was long. I read it twice. It used the phrase "I could not have known" 4 times, which is interesting when there is a laminated card. It ended with, "I hope we can move past this as a family." I didn't respond. Then my aunt called. The one from Phoenix. She said that Melissa was going through a hard time and that family is supposed to be forgiving and that my silence was making things worse. I asked her what specifically was worse. She said the tension, the atmosphere, the fact that my brother and his wife felt unwelcome at family events now. I said, "My mother was taken by ambulance from their kitchen. I think discomfort is appropriate." My aunt made a sound that I can only describe as a sustained exhale of disappointment and said, "You've always been so rigid." I hung up. Over the next 10 days, I heard from 3 different family members, all delivering variations of the same message. "Melissa is sorry. It was an accident. Please don't make this into something it isn't. Move on." Not one of them asked how my mom was doing in any real way. Not one of them asked if she was having trouble sleeping, if the fear had stuck around, if she was nervous about eating at anyone's house now. Not one. My mom, for her part, was quiet about it. She's not a confrontational person. She told me she wasn't sure whether she believed it was an accident, and then she said, "But I don't know what good it does to decide either way." And I think she was being wise. I think she was being wise. I think she was protecting herself from an answer that would hurt too much. I was not as wise. About 2 weeks after Easter, Melissa sent a group text to the extended family, aunts, uncles, cousins, my parents, saying she was heartbroken about the rift that had formed and that she felt she was being punished for an honest mistake and asking everyone to encourage healing. She did not tag me in this message. I found out about it because my cousin texted me privately and said, "I thought you should know." I sat with this for about 24 hours. Then I called a family attorney, not to do anything dramatic. I just wanted to understand my options and my position clearly. The attorney, a woman named Dr. Iver Okonkwo, actually, no, she was an attorney, not a doctor. I don't know why I keep wanting to add a title there. She was patient and clear, and by the end of our call, I had a very specific picture of where I stood. I also, in that conversation, learned what negligent hosting means in my state and what documentation from an emergency room visit looks like when it's used in a formal complaint. I didn't do anything with that information yet. I just held it. What I did do was call my brother. I told him that I had been patient. I told him that I understood mistakes happen and that I had genuinely tried to hold space for the possibility that Melissa hadn't intended harm. I told him that what I could not hold space for was the group text, the lobbying, the coordinated campaign of phone calls designed to reframe what happened as a conflict about my rigidity rather than a situation where my mother nearly died at his wife's dinner table. My brother said, She's really struggling with the guilt. I said, I'm sure she is. That's between her and her therapist. He was quiet for a moment, then he said, What do you want from us? And I said, I want Melissa to apologize to Mom, directly, without qualifications, without I didn't know and I couldn't have known, and I hope we can move past this, a real apology. And I want the family group texts to stop. He said he'd talk to her. She sent my mom a voice memo 3 days later. I wasn't there when my mom listened to it, but my mom called me afterward and was quiet for a long time and then said, she said she was sorry if I was frightened. Sorry if I was frightened. My mom was in an ambulance. She didn't need to imagine a reason to be frightened. I think that was the moment I stopped trying to find a version of this where Melissa and I end up okay. Here's the part I haven't told yet. The part my brother definitely did not anticipate. The house my parents live in, the one with the deed in my name, has a month-to-month arrangement. It was set up that way intentionally because my grandfather wanted flexibility. My parents have never needed that flexibility used against them. I have never had a reason to change anything. But the arrangement also covers the small studio unit above the garage, which my brother and Melissa have been using as storage, and occasionally as a crash pad when they visit, for the past 3 years. No formal agreement. No rent. Just family. After the voice memo, after sorry if I were frightened, after 10 days of coordinated pressure from people who never once asked how my mom was sleeping, I sent my brother a formal letter, not mean, not emotional, just clear. I let him know that effective 30 days from receipt, the studio unit above the garage would no longer be available to him or Melissa for storage or accommodation. I let him know that this was not a punishment but a clarification of a situation that had never been formally documented and that I had decided to address. I CC'd my attorney. I also, in the same letter, noted that I was aware of the group text and that if I received any further communications from Melissa or family members on her behalf characterizing what happened at Easter as anything other than what it was, a preventable allergenic reaction that sent my mother to the emergency room, I would be pursuing a formal complaint with documentation from the hospital and the attending physician's report. My brother called me 40 minutes after he received the letter. He said, Are you serious right now? I said, Yes. He said, Over a sauce. And I said, Over a wife nearly killing our mother and then spending 2 weeks making sure everyone in the family thought I was the problem. He hung up. The next day, Melissa called my mom directly. My mom told me later that Melissa was crying and said she was truly sorry, that there were no excuses, that she should have checked every single label and she didn't, and she had been minimizing it because she couldn't face how serious it was. My mom said she accepted the apology. My mom is a kinder person than I am. I think that's one of the many reasons I was so furious on her behalf. My brother called me 2 days later, calmer. He said they'd moved their stuff out of the studio. He didn't ask me to rescind anything. He just said, I know I didn't handle this well. I should have pushed her harder to apologize sooner. I said, Yes, you should have. There's a long silence on a call like that, the kind where both of you are deciding whether to keep going or let it rest for now. We let it rest. I don't know where my brother and I land. I genuinely don't. There is something about watching someone watch their wife minimize nearly killing your mother and choosing over and over for 10 days to stay silent. There's something about that I'm still sitting with. I'm not sure forgiveness is the right word for what I'm working toward. I think the word is understanding. And I'm not there yet. The family has mostly gone quiet. My aunt from Phoenix sent me a message that said, I hope you feel you've made your point. I did not respond to that one. My mom is doing well. She went to her doctor for a follow-up. She's been to 2 dinners at friends' houses since then, and she was nervous both times, but she went. And she asked about ingredients before she ate anything, and she was fine. She's working on not letting this make her smaller. I go over on Sunday afternoons sometimes. I bring groceries. We watch whatever she's been recording on her DVR, usually something with too many commercial breaks that she refuses to fast forward through because she says she doesn't mind the interruptions. I sit next to her on the couch, and I think about the laminated card on Melissa's refrigerator, and I think about the ambulance, and I think about my mom's face when she said, Do you think it was an accident? I still don't have an answer for her. But I know that being her daughter means I don't get to just make peace for the sake of peace, when peace is being offered in bad faith. I know that standing between your mother and the people who shrug at her safety, even when those people are your own family, even when everyone in the room is telling you you're being too rigid, too dramatic, too much, that's not making things bigger than they need to be. That's just knowing what's actually big. I've thought a lot about what Melissa said in that voice memo. Sorry if you were frightened. Not, I'm sorry I put shrimp paste in a sauce I served to someone with a life-threatening allergy. Not, I'm sorry I spent 2 weeks making everyone in the family think you were the difficult one. Just sorry if the experience of nearly dying in my kitchen was unpleasant for you. There's something clarifying about a sentence like that. It removes all the ambiguity you've been trying to hold on to. I spent a lot of time in those 2 weeks after Easter trying to be fair, trying to leave room for the possibility that it really was a mistake, that Melissa genuinely didn't understand that shrimp paste counted, that her silence afterward was guilt and not strategy. I wanted to be the kind of person who doesn't assume the worst. I've seen what it looks like when people in families decide the worst about each other and hold it forever, and I didn't want to become that. But fairness isn't the same as pretending. And I think the thing I had to learn, the hard way, the way you only learn things that actually stick, is that you can extend good faith to someone without surrendering your own clear-eyed understanding of what happened. What happened is, my mother told Melissa about her allergy. Melissa said she had it handled. Melissa did not handle it. My mother went to the hospital, and then, instead of leading with genuine accountability, Melissa led with 10 days of reputation management. That's the sequence. I can be kind about it and still know that's the sequence. I've also thought about Derek, my brother. He's not a bad person. I don't think he's a bad person. But he made a choice over and over for those 10 days, the choice to let his wife's comfort be more important than his mother's safety and his sister's sanity. That's not Melissa's choice. That's his. And I think one of the hardest things about getting older is realizing that the people you love are capable of making choices like that, and then deciding what that means for how close you let them stand. What I know is this: character isn't what people do when it's easy. It's what they do when staying quiet costs them nothing and speaking up might cost them something small. Derek had 100 moments in those 10 days where speaking up would have cost him a slightly awkward conversation with his wife. He chose quiet every single time. That tells me something I can't unknow. I'm not trying to punish anyone. The letter I sent wasn't revenge. It was boundaries written in a language everyone in that family finally understood. Because the truth is, some people only respect what you're willing to protect. I had been treating that property arrangement like it was untouchable out of generosity, and Melissa had been reading that generosity as something else entirely. As weakness, maybe. As an assumption that I would always absorb the cost. I don't regret sending it. I regret that it was necessary. My mom is okay. She goes to dinners, and she asks about the ingredients, and she comes home fine. She's braver than she gives herself credit for. And on Sunday afternoons, she lets me sit next to her on the couch and not fast forward through the commercials, and I think that's its own kind of peace. I don't know where Derek and I will land. I'm leaving room for something better than where we are right now. But I know I'll never again sit in a room full of people telling me I'm making things bigger than they need to be and believe them over what I saw with my own eyes. My mother was in an ambulance. Some things are exactly as big as they are.